Hello everyone, welcome back. It is crazy hot here in central Pennsylvania. Nope, it is crazy hot here in eastern Pennsylvania. I'm still learning where I live, and the light is right overhead. It's the worst time of day to shoot. I'm getting gear ready to go to Maine, and I got an email from a viewer that I want to talk about. Let's go. So I email a lot with viewers, and it makes me super happy to do that. If you have questions about stuff, feel free to email me. This is a guy that I emailed with a bunch of times. I think it started off with some boat questions and then some gear purchase questions. And the email that I got today said, I picked up a second-hand Werner Kamano. Why didn't you tell me to do this sooner? It's light, it's stiff, essentially it's wonderful, and it's something I feel like I say all the time, and have even been given a hard time in the comments that like I'm a shill for Werner paddles, which I'm not. They don't pay me. I love their gear. But let's talk about why I paddle with a $400 paddle. Some people paddle with more expensive paddles. I've picked a spot in the Werner product line that's just below the top. So $400 for my paddle. I'm gonna double check that. Let me explain why and why I think it's so important. And it's something that I feel like I say all the time, but clearly not enough, because this viewer didn't feel like I had said it to him. So I got to get gear ready to go to Maine. At the same time, let's talk about my paddle. Okay, so I paddle with a Werner Kamano. I think it's actually supposed to be pronounced Camano. Carbon, so carbon shaft, carbon blades, which I sometimes call the carbon. And it is $415 on the Werner website for the standard shaft, no bend. And I think you can get them a little bit cheaper at REI and places like that. And I actually just got a new one, and this is it. Okay, so let's talk about this guy right here. Okay, so I have 3 Werner paddles. I normally only have 2. I updated my Camano just a little while ago because I started to notice that there was a very slight issue with my primary paddle. So if you take a paddle, which has a joint right in the middle, and hold it above the joint and give it a shake, you shouldn't feel a wiggle. And I noticed a very slight wiggle in my Camano, and that's normal with wear and tear. And what goes on is that every time you put this paddle together, the joint wears a little bit. Werner has this gear in here that I really like that minimizes the amount of wear, but there is still a little bit of a wiggle in there. That's actually the new one. This is the one with the wiggle, and it's very slight, but it's only going to get worse. And so normally I have a primary paddle and a backup paddle, and my new paddle is the primary paddle, and then what was my primary paddle slides into the slot of backup paddle, and then I generally sell the third paddle, the old backup, and I only need 2 paddles, so it's an easy thing for me to just part with that piece of gear. Having just moved and a lot on my plate, I haven't gotten a chance to sell that one yet. That paddle actually is a little bit different. So my third paddle, what was my backup until about a month ago, is this Werner Kamano, and it's actually the older version of the Kamano. And this is the paddle that I used on the Inside Passage, and then when I went back in Prince William Sound a couple years later. And it's a great paddle, but I didn't like it quite as much as the Camano. And the reason was that inside this blade is foam core, which is supposed to make this pop out of the water a little bit faster. For me, it gave a little bit of a wiggle. I have a really loose grip when I'm paddling, and that gave the paddle a little bit of a wiggle. And I finally decided, you know what, I'm paying more money, it's a little bit heavier, I'm gonna go back to a Camano, which is a little bit less expensive. Still a great paddle, but just doesn't suit me quite as well. And it's more expensive than the Camano. So I was going down one notch in their product line. And I've been super happy with the Camano ever since. And so I said I have a Camano that has a carbon shaft and a carbon blade. You can also buy Camanos that have a carbon shaft and a fiberglass blade, and those are about $100 and change less expensive. Still a great paddle, but just one stop less. It's a little bit heavier because it's not a carbon blade, but still a great paddle. I really like the carbon, and that's what I paddle with. Okay, so why a Werner? I've been paddling Werners for decades, I think 20 years. My first Werner was a gift to me by my, at the time, girlfriend, now my wife. Not why I picked her, but it's a good reason. And there are some things about the Werners that I really like that other paddle manufacturers don't do. First off, the build quality is wonderful. They are pretty much essentially handmade. Werner is a little tiny company. It's owned by a family. And they just make beautiful products. But what I really love is this shaft joint. I love that it's geared, which minimizes movement. But what I really like is that when the paddle is assembled, it's completely smooth. So Aquabound, a great paddle company. I've never owned an Aquabound, but I've paddled with them. I don't like their joints because they're pretty bulbous. And besides the fact that that's adding weight, the real problem is that it's going to grab grit and debris in beaches and such, and salt buildup. And so I just feel like it's asking for trouble down the road. So that's why I don't do Aquabounds. Someone mentioned in a comment just recently, which is something I had never thought of, is the Aquabounds have, their carbon shafts have a little bit of a texture to them, which can lead to issues with your hands, and that's why they wear gloves. Something I hadn't really thought of. As I said, I have paddled with the Aquabounds, but I haven't done like multiple long days, so that could be true. I haven't experienced it, but I thought that was interesting and something I hadn't thought of. So super nice, smooth shaft, really nice. That's primarily why I work with Werner. That's primarily why I use such an expensive paddle, the build quality, the lightweight, and I've talked about this all the time. For long days on the water, I really want a lightweight paddle. Okay, so that's why I use a Werner. Could I do that with another brand? Sure, absolutely. I think the Lendl paddles are amazing. I don't have a ton of experience with them. I tried to reach out to a Lendl rep here on the East Coast and couldn't get a return phone call because I want to test a paddle out and I want to do a video about it. So if you work with Lendl, tell them I want to test out a paddle, we'll do a video about it. But I believe that those are equal quality to the Werners. I, beyond that, have not paddled with a paddle that I've been super impressed with. I think the Aquabounds are good, but not great. I've owned a Harmony paddle. I've owned a couple of other less expensive brands and have never really been happy. Stay away from aluminum shafts. They get hot in the summer, they get cold in the winter. Plastic blades are not bad if you're going to be on rivers. They're super durable. I'm generally not on rivers. So I go with carbon shaft, carbon blade, lightweight, which makes it expensive, and I'm okay with that. My paddles, which do get a lot of use, generally last me 2 to 4 years, depending on stuff. But as I said, that third paddle was my primary paddle until 2015. So that means I've been through 2 paddles since then. That's not bad for $400. Well, the Calliste was a bit more, but that's not bad for $400. Okay, so as that viewer said, a must-have. Shoulders feel much better, light and stiff. You can't beat that. That's why I use a Werner, or you could use any other high-end paddle, I suppose. If you found this interesting, do me a favor, hit like and subscribe. If you're just getting started in paddling, my book's on Amazon. The Simple Guide to Kayaking, Simple Guide to Kayak Camping will help you out getting started. If you have questions, you can email them to me here. Otherwise, I'll see you on the water.